r/AskReddit. What conspiracy theory do you believe in the most? I don't know if it's a popular conspiracy, but YouTube Kids is on some serious brainwashing bullshit. My baby brother has a tablet that he regularly uses to watch YouTube, and we restricted him to the Kids app, which has seemed like more and more of a bad idea by the videos that are on there. Some are harmless Minecraft videos or songs, but others are just weird, creepy animation, characters stabbing each other with objects, even putting bags over their head, which my brother decided to try for fun. Definitely brainwashing and conditioning in the worst way possible. This one is more personal, but I fully believe it. Long story short, my father-in-law was good friends with a guy who was pretty high up in Boeing. Like, knew some top secret kinda stuff. Well, he ended up quitting as he couldn't take the pressure. He was a very paranoid person, to the point is, was a hindrance to his life. Well, a few months after he starts telling my Phil that he's being watched and followed, and that the government is coming for him. Like I said, insanely paranoid. A few extra details that will be important. He drove moped as his primary transportation, and he was very overweight. Lo and behold, he comes up dead a month or so later. The official story is this: he was riding along when a hitchhiker waved him down. He stopped to pick him up, drove a few miles down the road to a secluded wooded area, pulled off the road, walked into the woods and shot himself. I shouldn't need to explain what's wrong here, but I will anyway. I'm supposed to believe that a guy with crippling paranoia picked up some random hitchhiker and then killed himself. Even if he wasn't paranoid, it's basically impossible for him to fit a small child on his moped with him, let alone a full-grown male adult. No information was ever released about the hitchhiker. No name, no statements to the police, nothing. Sounds legit though, right? Coca-Cola tested HFCS in place of sugar and found that, while the taste was similar, people could tell the difference. They brought out new Coke to cleanse people's palates and waited until as much of the original formula products had been sold as they could. Then they cancelled New Coke and brought back Coke Classic, which was the HCFS version, and people didn't have any original stuff left to compare it to. The only reason they made New Coke was to act as a buffer, so people wouldn't notice the change in ingredients. Marshmello doesn't actually produce his own music. My biggest piece of evidence is the creator arcade videos. He speaks and navigates Ableton like someone with only a basic knowledge of music production. He does everything number by number. Producers don't do that. You can't just instantly know that sound needs a boost of exactly 1 dB at exactly 1.2 kHz without even listening to the sound first. He randomly pauses every now and then, presumably to be fed lines, and he seems to lack even a basic understanding of music theory, recreating MIDI by randomly clicking in notes with no regard for the key of the song. Someone with the level of skill he demonstrates should not be capable of making radio quality hits. My girlfriend and I stopped in one when she needed a new mattress. Over the few I've purchased/seen my parents purchase, I learned you can haggle on mattress hard. Anyway, we go in. Need a mattress, nothing fancy, blah blah. Ask about floor models or clearance. Guy says he has the last of a discontinued model that's not on display. $800 could do $125. Great. If it's here tomorrow, we'll come back with my pickup and take it. Come back the next day, mention the discount he owned ones. He looks in the computer and says, yeah, I've got two of one that are $800, a $900, and one a little smaller, twin vs single. I forget the one she needed, for $700. I say that we were here yesterday and worked out a deal on one of them. Remind him that we said they would come back tomorrow. He tells me that he doesn't remember us at all. Yesterday was busy and everyone shopping around says that. Now I've never seen a busy mattress store, period. We were the only customers in the store at that time. He says he could do $250 on that one to get rid of it. Expecting some kind of argument, I tell him yesterday he said $125. He starts off with, are you sure it was me? Yesterday? I tell him yes, and try to recall a couple other things he said. To which he replies, well, if it was yesterday I was the only one here, so it had to be me. If I said that, I guess it's $125 then. Just a very awkward sale. I've posted this one before, but I think that there are high-level rings of pedophiles and sexual predators specifically, so that those above them can keep them under control. We know that there are kingmakers, while the big actors, musicians, etc. today are certainly talented. There are plenty of B and C listers who could be just as big if only they had the backing of a big publisher like Disney, Paramount, etc. Thing is, making a king is expensive. You have to spend a lot of time and money getting the public to care about them before they start to pay you back, and once they're big they don't technically need you anymore. So the kingmakers are naturally going to look for people who are attainable to ensure they get their investment back. They have to. For every king they make dozens of duds. It's an expensive process. Sometimes that's as simple as them being naive. A good legal contract can lock them in for a long time, and often the only way out is to destroy your value, so the kingmaker stops caring. Look at Britney Spears' meltdown for example, but if you can't get that then blackmail works just as well. I suspect that for a long time homosexuality was the go-to black mark. That's why it seemed like for so long that the big names were always having gay scandals and the like. It was easy to stage, easy to feed them their vice of choice when they were good and not illegal, just career suicide. So it was low risk high reward. But of course the downside to making a king is that he gets a good deal of power to, and eventually public opinion shifted and it became okay to be gay. Could still destroy some careers. The teen heartthrob loses a lot of his appeal when it turns out he's more interested in his very small male fan base, but hardly enough to keep them from going solo or jumping to another label. So now they moved on to more shocking and illegal appetites. Harder to spot vulnerable marks and tougher to get them their vice of choice. But if it was easy to make a king everybody would be doing it. Someone who abuses women or children isn't about to cross their handler. They shut up and take their cut. After all, they are still being handsomely rewarded, just not as much as they could be making if they didn't have a publisher leeching out the lion's share of their profits. I don't think this is a huge coordinated conspiracy, mind you. I think that quite a few successful talent managers have discovered that sexual predators are surprisingly easy to manage if you're willing to clean up their messes for them, and that when you're talking about tens of millions of dollars you can suddenly afford high-powered lawyers and firemen who neither ask nor answer questions. But between predators gaining power and promoting like-minded monsters and managers seeking out predators because they're easy to keep on contract, I think it explains a bit of why there always seems to be at least a few sexual assault scandals going on in movies and music at any given time. The military shot down United Airlines 93 over Pennsylvania on 9/11. They knew it was hijacked and on its way to Washington DC, and scrambled jets were right next to it when it went down. Plus several witnesses saw an explosion in the sky before it crashed. Totally justified given everything happening that day, but the government would never want to admit it shot down a commercial aircraft full of innocent Americans over America. Edit. First gold. Thanks. But the government would never want to admit it shot down a commercial aircraft full of innocent Americans over America. Not if they can blame it on something else. But no government will say no to bringing down a hijacked plane that isn't listening to commands. I think it's actually pretty realistic for the government / Google / whoever to be watch our phones and computers, listening to our conversations. I probably sound crazy, but there have been people whose phones got hacked and were watched. Isn't there supposedly a whole genre of red room type hidden cameras for watching women undress using their webcams? There have even been some apps on the freaking Google Play Store that did that sort of thing. People are getting more and more nosy, and with that nosiness comes more and more technologies for them to be nosy in private and in secret. How unlikely is it really that our government is monitoring us? I think some memes are started by businesses as a form of free advertising. The recent Duolingo memes got me thinking more about it. Duolingo wasn't a small app at the time, but it became a lot more popular after the fact. There have been other memes revolving around a particular product / brand as well that make me think this is happening on a strategic level beyond some kid thinking it'd be hella funny to do this or that. Britney Spears was having issues managing her life and fame, but they were exacerbated and encouraged by the people around her to push her into one huge public meltdown they could use to gain control over her. I remember reading stories about her assistant and manager fucking with her, hiding her phone then calling it, all while telling her it wasn't ringing, until she broke down crying. They would mess with her things and tell her she did it in some kind of fit. I remember reading something about them deliberately confusing her in public, so she would look disoriented, and them pushing the drugs and alcohol on her. The ultimate diagnosis was a sham, to make sure they could keep her drugged to the gills and compliant. Then again, this year, she checked into a mental health facility, and they claim she became distraught over her father's health problems. I say they forced her in, because she was starting to ask for more and more independence, and not listening when they said no, so they shoved her in there, to remind her who's in charge. I also don't think it's a coincidence that right around the same time, the attorney who managed the financial aspect of her conservatorship asked for a big raise then suddenly resigned. Britney has recently taken to court to ask for it to be lifted, or at least minimized. Her mother is also suing for access to Britney's medical and treatment records. Edit. Some points. A. I don't watch South Park or Black Mirror. B. I've had this theory since it all first started going on. C. I do believe she genuinely has a mental illness. I'm saying they exacerbated it to get control, and are currently exaggerating it to keep that control. D. Ultimate diagnosis was a sham is the wrong wording, because like I said, I believe she has some issues. I meant they take advantage of her needing medication, to keep her overly medicated and docile. Basically a pretty doll. Thank you for watching Reddit. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more r/AskReddit videos. Share your stories in the comments section below.